Jaguars head coach Liam Cohen is very, very relatable. And I think that has a lot to do with the enthusiasm of the fans about his presence on this team. We'll talk about that dissected here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, the daily podcast for 30 minutes every day that gives you all of the latest news and notes from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I hope that you are listening wherever you get your podcast. We're free to subscribe to. Make sure that you check us out, whether you watch or listen to podcasts. Wherever you get them, we will be there each and every day. And shout out to the everydayers who do join us every day. And if you're new, welcome. And I hope I'll give you a reason to come back. All right, here's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to end up talking about how leading is a game changer. And what I mean by that is when I say game changer, I'm also talking about a challenge for Liam Cohen. Leading is different from just being a part of the whole thing. And speaking of that whole thing, it's in his blood. Liam was a son of a coach. He was also a quarterback. It's only fitting that he ends up being a head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But that's what makes this relatable. So at the top, what we're going to talk about is why he is so relatable. And this is my spill on that. Liam Cohen is living the dream. Not only is he living his dream, but he's living the dream of every kid like me, like a whole bunch of folks, and I'm 55, so I can only imagine somebody who's 25 or 30 years old is like, why are you making a big deal out of this? Well, because I used to be 25. And when I was 25, I came upon the realization that, okay, I'm never going to be a coach, right? So I can be a part of the media in the NFL. But in terms of finding a path that I wanted to participate in talking or being around sports. This goes back to me being a stat man in high school. I played basketball and I played football too, but I was really better at basketball than I was football, even though I love football. And the coach thought I had some value, and the value to him was, I need you to call these stats in that everybody else made, not you, on Friday. Call them in on Monday morning. And I'll tell everybody this story who wants to listen. When I called him in on Monday, I was 15 years old, and I had to call the Florida Times-Union. The person that answered the phone at the Florida Times-Union was their high school beat writer. His name was Frank Frangie. That man is now a part of just being my mentor in radio. He is an icon in terms of local radio here in Jacksonville, and he's the play-by-play announcer for the Jaguars radio broadcast of the actual game. So, and he's a good friend, amongst other things. And he's old, by the way. I tell him that every time I get a chance. But yeah, so that was my lane, man. Wasn't good enough. But I was smart and I wanted to be around it. So when I talk about sports, I still feel like that little kid that used to use all of these legal pads. My mom used to go crazy. I had all these legal pads. Those were prospects. I did it year round, right? So I think one of the things that makes me a little bit relatable here is because I'm a fan, but I'm more of a fan of the city. But the credibility side from the radio perspective is I've done it. I've been around it. I can feel it. I know what it is, and therefore I give it, to you through the microphone. Well, Liam Cohen actually is living the dream. Every little kid wanted to either be a player or a coach, and they've pretty much said it. And the reason why this is so important to me is because of how messaging and transparency can endear fans to the brass and the people that are running the show. And this is why Trent Baalke, to have the personality that he had and to have the one that Doug Peterson had, ain't nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to be like that, you better win. Because if you don't, you're going to be looked at as obtuse. You're going to be looked at as somebody who can't relate. And you've heard a lot from players saying, these younger guys, we just relate to them a little bit better. Not just like that, but something like that. That's sentiment. The sentiment is, Yeah, I love them, man, because they communicate and they talk. They actually listen to you. You see where I'm going? Ain't nothing wrong with being the other way, but if you are going to be that way, you better win. The second you start losing, ain't nobody putting up with that foolishness. Okay? But you still better win even if you're the other way. And that's what Liam Cohen is. Liam Cohen represents all of us. And James Gladstone to me is the same way. I mean, of the three-headed monsters, what I'll call him, the one who actually did and lived this the way that all kids grow up thinking that you're going to be able to is Tony Baselli. I jokingly told somebody the nerds won. We all won. All of us football geeks, we won when they hired James Gladstone and they hired Liam Cohen because that's us. And it's relatable, and we can all get it. We can all understand. We all of us in the football universe, we have our own little way, and we have our own little thing and our own little what part of the vessel, our own little avenue, our own little street, our own little artery in this whole heartbeat of the NFL and pro sports. We all have our little stake in it, right? But they're actually doing it. There's a sense of people who think just like we all think are actually in charge. And for a lot of people, that has to feel good. Now, we got to be careful because I treat relatability the same way that I have talked in the past about familiarity. It's comforting, but it doesn't get a first down. It doesn't make a tackle. It doesn't score a point. It doesn't kick a field goal or an extra point. How are we going to feel about Liam Cohen when the results start coming in? We'll get to that in segment number 3. But in segment 2, talk a little bit more about how you have coaching in your DNA, man. How just who you are. Liam's dad was a coach, and during his introductory press conference, he talked a lot about his family. But he really got choked up a little bit when he started thinking about his dad, and even further than that, to his grandfather. I love when we talk about family stuff. We're gonna do that. We're gonna talk about Liam Cohen coaching and how it got in his blood. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night, just like last night, it delivers highlight-worthy performances. Jalen Brunson was the truth last night. And maybe a momentum swift for the Knicks. We'll see if they can go back to Indiana and steal Game 6. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance, trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Here's what you need to do. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. You heard me. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. Always thanking you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins. We've been talking about Liam Cohen and why he's so relatable to fans. I mean, everybody wanted to grow up and be a part of the football on the ultimate level, and that's what these guys are doing. And I'm enjoying them. I'm enjoying watching them living out their dreams. But at some point, that ain't what we came here for. We came here to watch them win. We'll get to how all of this will shake out in segment number 3. But segment 2 here, we're going to talk a little bit more about our coach, Liam Cohen, and a little bit about his journey. Let me read something from the Providence Journal, okay? And, you know, Liam's from the Rhode Island, up in Rhode Island, right? This is the beginning of an article. It's actually written from Lexington, Kentucky. It says, Tim Cohen still remembers the look of incredulity. Tim Cohen still remembers the look of incredulity on his assistant coaches' faces. This year was 1989. Cohen was meeting with his staff in a tiny office in South Kingston High School in Rhode Island while his young son, Liam, entertained himself on the chalkboard the staff normally used to diagram plays. As the coaches planned for practice in the upcoming game, one happened to look towards Liam and let out a startled exclamation. He was in front of the chalkboard, had an absolute wishbone formation with 11 players where they were supposed to be and a defense lined up. It was incredible. We were all sitting there going, you have to be kidding me. Liam Cohen was 4 years old. More than 30 years later, the coaching prodigy had been tabbed by the University of Kentucky coach Mark Stoops to take the Wildcats offense in a new direction. Just don't expect the wishbone from Liam, they said. This dude was meant to do this. He was meant to do this. This is his calling. Okay? Liam Cohen is a coach's coach. His grandfather played at Boston College, and his dad was a longtime high school coach. Sometimes what you're meant to be is not necessarily what you want. I'm sure Liam Cohen wanted to play, but his calling was to be a coach. And that man is living his dream. And James Gladstone was a high school coach coaching Les Snead's kid in high school. And his excellence was noticed, and he ended up becoming an intern for the Rams and working his way up through the system. And now he's the general manager for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I guess he was intangibly rich, right? So these guys represent the dudes that had a dream to make it. And now they get to share their dream with us. And we get to share that dream with them. And I think there's a fairy tale ending coming here at some point. And I'm optimistic. But not just because of the optics of them being able to live their dreams. Just because I actually think they're good at what they do. Okay? I believe they're really, really good at what they do. And I have confidence in them that they're going to get the job done. But it's when you have all of that time into coaching the way Liam Cohen does, when you grow up around it, when you live it, it's just who you are. You just wake up one day and decide, oh, I'm a coach. And I think when guys get jobs kind of quickly, because 3 years ago, nobody knew who Liam Cohen was. He was the offense coordinator at Kentucky. He went back to the Rams after that. It was his second stint in LA, and then he goes to Tampa for 1 year and gets the job. A lot of people think he got the job because Dave Canales did so well, and then Liam Cohen came in and didn't screw it up, right? But it's a lot deeper than that for me. When you look into somebody's background, you start to understand and you ask the question of who and why. What is their why? Who are they? He's a dude that when he was 4 years old was standing in an office in front of a surface, a chalkboard, lining plays up 11 on 11. There's no telling how many times he's heard his father and his dad's friends, who were probably his assistant coaches, or his dad and his grandfather talking ball at the dinner table like blue bloods. Instead of talking law enforcement, they're talking football. All of this stuff creates and makes people who they are. So this ain't about him just coaching for Sean McVay and coming in after Dave Canales. This is about a dude that when he was 4 years old, man, was standing in there with chalk in his hand, dialing it up. That's who you have as your coach. We won. All of us football geeks, we won because one of us is the coach. And yeah, I'm biased and I'm pulling for him for that reason. I'm also biased and pulling for him because I want this city to win. Sometimes you get a little bit of a bonus. And that bonus is we ain't going to just win. We're going to win with somebody that's just like y'all. a Jordan wearing. I don't know what Liam eats, but I guarantee you he eat ribs with no sauce on them. That's the way we get out. He just seems like the right guy for Duval. Even though he said it funny when he was at that Duval, he ain't gonna be able to live that. We need to actually, if they win, we'll adopt the way he said Duval, and we'll start saying it that way too. Duval, yeah, we'll do that. You win, you can say it how you want to say it, Jack. It ain't gonna be funny no more when you win, right? Everybody laugh and pick at it. The second you win, that little raggedy Duval kind of sounds pretty good to me. All right, so now we got to do the hard part. The hard part is you actually got to win, because Liam, I got to tell you something. If you don't, all of that good stuff I just said about you, they're going to turn it against you, Jack. They're going to flip it. And by they, I mean me too, here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm going to flip it too, and I'm going to talk about you. So let's just win so I don't have to eat that kind of crow. But we'll discuss why leading is a game changer and why it's so important in this whole thing, why we're making fun and having a good time with it. I'll tell you right now in segment number 3 why actually doing it is a little bit different. We always talk about people that play pretend. Well, he ain't playing pretend. He's actually doing this. Why is it different? But why do I think he'll be fine? I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap in whether you watch or listen. Also, Locked On NFL Scouting makes you smarter. And they got 2 hosts that are very smart. That's Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, 2 of the best in the business. They'll get you right, man, and make you one of the smartest people in the National Football League. I can help you in all kinds of ways. Make sure you tap into the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast and make it your second listen. All right. Leading. Why is it a game changer? Someone told me a person that leads doesn't necessarily know it all. In fact, the person that leads realizes he doesn't know it all. But he's willing to get out front like a crash test dummy and be the one that's accountable for everything. In the past, you've seen coaches, Doug Marrone, stand up and say that he was just going to throw stuff against the wall to see what sticks, and then sit there and say, I wish whoever got mad at somebody would come down here and talk to you, because I don't know what that's all about. You've seen non-aligned football teams and what happened. You saw a coach tell a reporter, I ain't getting into that because you ain't going to understand it anyway. You heard that before. You heard a coach say that we're not big and physical enough. And then 30 minutes later, the GM said, yeah, we ain't big and physical enough. The person that was supposed to make them big and physical, by the way. And then a week later, you heard him at the combine saying, guys don't get big and physical once they get to the NFL. They're born that way. If you knew that, why didn't you pick enough of them and make your team big and physical? When you're not big and physical, it's your fault if you've been there for 4 years. And I don't know why you didn't understand that. Leadership can cause people to tell on themselves. Leadership can also come in the form of Liam Cohen, where it looks like it's really, really transparent. We can tell you exactly what we're going to do, but you got to be able to stop it, because I got to motivate these people. Ain't no secrets in the NFL. How good is Liam Cohen going to be while he's living his dream? I think he can be very good. I think one of the things that I've heard him say, and I've heard them say, I've heard Trevor say it too, Trevor Lawrence, is they want to try to provide answers pre-snap. That's brilliant. That might be, to me, smarter than intangibly rich, smarter than being nothing more than themselves, smarter than alignment, smarter than the ecosystem. The game-changing part of this is you don't just have to do it. You have to set the template, and you have to make sure that everyone else is doing the thing that you did while you were an assistant coach. And when I hear players and coaches say, provide answers pre-snap, paint a picture, give you options. You already know what you're going to do. They don't necessarily know. They know they know how you lined up. They know what the tape says. But even with that, you're already adjusting. It tells me that ain't nobody sitting around here worried about living their dream from when they was a kid. And I'm glad that we're crescendoing into this. He ain't worried about that. That dude's trying to dial it up, and he wants to whoop people. When you hear a coach say stuff like, they need to know when we break that huddle what's about to happen. That we're going to run the football. We're going to be physical. When you hear a coach talk about being physically and mentally tough, that means I'm going to put some stuff on you, because where we're going and the thing that we have to do requires mental and physical toughness. So I have to make sure that I build you up to that first. I can't wait until we get there to hope, because I'm living my dream, that y'all going to get it right because I'm Mr. Nice Guy. No, I'm going to set a standard from the very beginning, and I'm going to provide the answers for you. What this sounds like to me is accountability. It sounds like proper messaging. It sounds like proper communication. So while we spent the first half of the show talking about a dude living his dream, but then when you realize it right in the middle of the show, when you think about his dad, his grandfather, and a 4-year-old standing up in front of a chalkboard, what you realize is it's not really a dream, it's a reality. And then you pull the veil back, and what you realize is, no, this dude is a coach's coach. All this dude has done is actually live at a coaching university, like a lot of coaches have, whose fathers and grandfathers were coaches. I told a story about Nick Saban talking about the Stoops people. I said he was somewhere diagramming plays, having lunch with Bob Stoops' uncle, a dude y'all ain't never heard of, Uncle Stoops. And that they were so ingrained in dialing those plays up on a napkin in this restaurant that the place got robbed and they didn't even know it. That's the greatest college coach of all time. And the uncle, probably some high school coach of a whole bunch of coaches, Stoops, and one of them, actually Coach Liam Cohen at Kentucky. We mentioned him earlier. That's their uncle. And I don't even know the man's first name. I'm just calling him Uncle Stoops. This is what Liam Cohen has been doing his whole life. So this ain't no fairy tale. This ain't no dream. It looks like that, just the same way I told you. It looks like they act like Mr. Rogers. They're nice guys. Okay, and they start cutting people and trading people that they chopped it up with and shook hands with, and everybody's sitting here thinking like, yeah, y'all can sit here and think they Mr. Nice Guy and Mr. Rogers all you want to, but this is a serious business here. And I also believe that while we can say that he's relatable and we can relate to him, we can chalk all of that up to messaging. That is not why he got that job, because he's relatable. No. He didn't get that job because he's one of us. You think Tony Baselli and Shad Khan wouldn't say, let's go hire a dude that's just like our fans to be the coach? That's not the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is it's a plus that he's that way, but the substance of who he is a football coach down to the bone gristle, Jack. Read that article. Google it about him being at a chalkboard when he was 4 years old. And grown men sitting there, they couldn't believe it. Now, does that mean they're going to win a bunch of games? Hell no, because I think most coaches have this similar story. I think most coaches have been around it. The whole Doug Peterson been around football for 35, 38 years and played for and coached with one of the GOATs of all time. Everybody has a story. This one just feels a little bit better, though. This one feels sort of like you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least a little bit longer than you would another coach. It's because they're not hiding anything, because you're not going to hear words like you ain't going to understand it. I wish Brent Martineau would have told him, yeah, what I don't understand is how the hell you can come out here and look the same every week for the last 2 years and not have an answer. I promise you I wish Brent would have said that. You'd say, why you ain't say it? Well, I wasn't there that day. But if I was, I probably wouldn't have said it either. I ain't going to lie to you, but I just wish somebody would have done it. I think Liam Cohen's going to be fine. I don't know if it's going to happen quickly. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, next year, the year after. But what I will tell you is this. I think you're just going to see a more competent brand of football. You're going to see things that you understand. Sometimes they're going to win. Sometimes they're going to lose. But what they won't do is go out and appear to be a team from a week-to-week basis that doesn't know, that doesn't have any, they're not intentional about anything. That's where it was in the past, and I think that ends now. What won't end is this podcast, and what won't end is Locked On NFL Scouting and Locked On NFL. Make sure you check those two shows out every day and make sure that you don't miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins. Have a nice weekend. I appreciate you spending 27 minutes with me today here on Locked On Jaguars. Take care.